With us right now is the French ambassador to India, Emmanuel Lenain. Ambassador, thank you very much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. I'd like to begin by asking you about the elections in the United States, which have just concluded. The US had launched trade wars with a number of countries, including the European Union as a bloc, high tariffs on European imports as well. Do you think the election of Joe Biden will usher in an era of peace and stability in diplomatic and trade ties between US and France and US and European Union?
Sure, I mean that's the hope. I think we're going to have a new momentum for a positive agenda. President Macron discussed with President-elect Joe Biden a few days ago, and together they discussed whether a new initiative could be taken for trade, as you mentioned, for global warming, for international peace and security, for global health. And I think we're going to see a very much more positive and much more multilateral commitment from the US, which is very good. And Europeans will welcome that partner. They will not change everything. I mean, the last few months, few years, you've seen a great effort within the EU to gather more strategic autonomy, to be more independent, and this is a long-term effort we will keep on doing and maybe accelerate.
Right, but you feel that some of the decisions that the previous administration had taken, those will be difficult to overturn?
Well, from what I see from the president-elect and his campaign, I mean, I've seen very positive signals for, and on the top of the list is the announcement that the US will come back to the Paris Agreement. I mean, we sure need all the nations of goodwill to team up if we want to be up to the challenges for the future generations. It's really important.
Right. Just to now speak about the India-France relationship, the trading partnership, what next do you see for the India-France trade relationship?
Well, it's going, I said, pretty well, very well. I would expand the view. I mean, trade is one thing, but what more important is also investment, and it's a global relation with the supply chain of these days. I mean, French companies have been very, very positive with India, committed to long-term investing in the Make in India for decades now. And right now you have more than 600 French companies employing more than 350,000 people in India, and they are very bully, very optimistic about the prospect. Obviously, the situation in India these days is difficult, like in all our countries, but they see the capacity of rebounds as very effective, and they know that in the coming years, decades, your country is going to be a center for high growth in the world, so they want to invest more and more. Right. And that's what has happened. I mean, during the COVID period, French companies have not slowed down on investment in India, just on the contrary. A company like Schneider Electric, they've invested in the last few months 1.5 billion euros. Group like Total, 500 million. These are big figures, and I'm confident that French companies will keep on investing in India because they believe in India.
Right. Are there any challenges that French companies are facing in India currently, something which you feel that the Indian government could possibly address?
Well, companies always want their business to be easier, but they all acknowledge that many progress have been made over the last few years. I mean, the leap that you can see in global rankings in terms of ease of doing business. I mean, the ranking of the World Bank is just something that was never seen in the past with any other country. I mean, it's a huge leap forward. So would they like to have even better infrastructures? Would they like to have even less regulation or red tape? Or, of course, yeah. I mean, if you ask any business what they would like, yes. but overall the business environment is really good.
Right. In light of the pandemic, there are several countries which are now looking to relocate from China, reduce dependence on Chinese imports. So how do French companies view India as a manufacturing destination? You must be getting a feedback from a lot of French companies. How many of them want to relocate to India or have a China plus one strategy where India is important?
Well, many of them. I think that's what we're going to see more and more in the coming months. I mean, this pandemic for all our countries has been a wake-up call. I mean, there are some. We're living in a world of globalized, of interdependencies, but there are dependencies which weaken you, and others which maybe strengthen you. And obviously, with India, the ties we have, we are very confident because we know that India, in the coming years, will still be our best partner. I mean, we have the same values, we have the same sort of interests, so we're not worried to manufacture in India because we know that India will never close the tap or whatever happens. I mean, that's what we've seen during the pandemics. I mean, at the beginning of the pandemic, our hospitals were in dire need of certain medical drugs and what happened? Well, India authorized the shipment of these drugs to our hospitals. We were very grateful. We did, by the way, we did reciprocate when the crisis picked up in India. At that time, our president decided to send some test kits to India, to send some ventilators, and also decided to grant an exceptional loan of 200 million by our development agency to help building up some social services for certain categories of the population were really weakened by the crisis. But that being said, yes, I mean, what we're going to see in the coming years is more production activities brought back to Europe, that's for sure. I mean, we feel that there are some very sovereign assets that should be brought back to Europe, but not everything. I mean, we're living in the real world. I mean, you have labor costs, you have everything won't be brought back to Europe.
Right.
And if we have to team up with certain countries, if companies have to invest or to put some of part of their supply chain in certain countries, India will be a top destination, of course, yes.
Right, good to hear that, Ambassador. Now, to speak about the FTA, the European Union is now negotiating with the Indian government. There were talks which had gone on for many years, they broke down. We've restarted talks recently. EU has recently concluded an FTA with Vietnam as well. That has been talked about a lot. How important is it for India to seal this FTA with the European Union in today's day and age?
I think it's important for India and for Europe. I mean, the EU is the largest economy in the world, and it's #1 trade partner to India. I mean, India must be #2 export destination for Europe, so which means we have common interest to move on the FTA, because if we conclude an FTA, the trade between our countries will just rocket up. So it's really important. Then what does it take? I mean, why is it being discussed for years and because it's an extremely technical and difficult agreement to conclude. And what does it take? What do we expect as Europeans? We want obviously an agreement which is balanced. I mean, win-win, and ambitious. I mean, it's no use trying to do an agreement which would be very specific or very. And when we say ambitious, it means ambitious in terms of sectors which will be covered, but also ambitious for the climate. I mean, it's a requisite from all the FTA now we conclude with the EU. We want to have provisions about the fight against climate change. This is very important. But I know that the Indian leaders, they share this they share these views, that we had that in mind. So I hope that in the not too far future we'll be able to conclude it's everybody's interest.
Right. Now to speak about the India-France defense relationship. Florence Parly, the defense minister of France, was in India recently. She held bilateral conversations with Rajnath Singh. What direction has that given to our ties?
Well, you're right. Minister Parly went in times of COVID. She wanted to come to India physically. Why? Because that was the ferry of the first Rafale jet to India. And that was very important. Why? Because we are immensely proud that we've been able to deliver on time according to the contract in spite of COVID. As in India, in France, the factories beginning of COVID have been closed for a few weeks because of COVID. But in order to deliver on time, they've been working at night and during weekends, extra shift, just to be on time. And we're perfectly on time. I mean, 14 Rafale have been delivered to India, and already 8 have been ferried to India. So it's a magnificent accomplishment. Now, what did she discuss? I mean, the whole partnership. I mean, joint exercises, and we're going in 2021 to relaunch our exercises, either on sea, Varuna, or on ground, Shakti. We're going to move forward on that. And in terms of military equipment, there are a lot of projects being discussed. I mean, the French companies are totally engaged, and I would say they are pioneer, because they are making incredible proposal on the Make in India side. And I'm confident that we're going to make some new progress in the near future. Yeah.
Right. But ambassadors, because we have now this big order of 36 Rafale jets which are coming in from France, does this create the right ecosystem for acquisition of more jets by India? Are there now talks for a larger contract?
I mean, obviously the Dassault and the French industrial companies are ready for more. I mean, they are ready to put some proposal for additional order. And as it seems that these jets fully satisfy the Indian Air Force. I'm pretty confident.
Right. So you feel that this is the right jet for India, and but for the moment we don't know which way these talks would go.
Well, I think it's up to the Indian government to say exactly when and what.
Right. And
on our side, we're totally ready, of course.
Great. My final question would be on the issue of terrorism. France has gone through some gruesome terror attacks recently. How is the French government and the President Emmanuel Macron approaching the issue of terror after these recent spate of attacks, and how has been the cooperation between India and France on the issue of terror?
Well, very determined, very resilient. I mean, we're not going to surrender our values because of any sort of terrorist attacks. This is not our values. I mean, France is a country where you're free to believe or not to believe, to worship or not to worship, and you can discuss about any issues, and you can disagree. And this is the core of our nation, our values, our philosophy. So how should we fight against terrorism? I mean, with partners, and partners who are also threatened by terrorism, and India obviously is a privileged partner in this respect. I mean, we've been cooperating for long, and we're increasing our cooperation. We are sharing intelligence. We are sharing our best practices. We are also jointly training. Very proud because last week there was special units which were organizing some video conference with your special units to exchange also on the best practices. And we also try to work at the roots of terrorism and working a lot together on the financing of terrorism. As you know, I mean, we 3 years ago we launched this initiative, No Money for Terror, and we are very happy to see that the next summit will be organized by India as soon as the COVID and sanitary conditions allow for it. But no, so cooperation between our two countries on that front also is just excellent.
Right. Ambassador, thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to CNBC-TV18 and laying out the future of the India-France trade partnership, defense partnership, and the broader strategic partnership as well.
Thank you very much, and let me wish you and your team and all the viewers a very happy Diwali.